Good evening and welcome. I'm your host, Liz Wheeler, and this is Tipping Point. Tonight, breaking news. The founder of Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm that created the infamous Trump dossier, the founder testified to Congress that somebody has already been killed as a result of the dossier. Well, who's been killed? Why? In what country? And by whom? We'll explore this explosive but entirely unsubstantiated claim in just moments with Chris Hull. Then, President Trump's mental health from a man who worked side by side with the president on the campaign trail. Plus, a story the mainstream media is doing their best to ignore. A grand jury has taken sworn testimony in the investigation into Bernie Sanders' wife, Jane, who allegedly committed bank fraud to secure a loan when she really had no money to back that loan. And we're not talking small potatoes here. We are talking $10 million. That's later. But before we begin all of that, thank you for being here tonight because our nation is at a tipping point. If we don't turn America towards liberty, then we risk losing the freedom that makes America exceptional. So let's get started. Our first tipping point tonight, the founder of Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm that created the infamous Trump dossier, the founder testified to Congress that somebody has already been killed as a result of the dossier. So my question is, who was killed? Why were they killed? In what country were they killed? And by whom were they killed? It seems odd to me that somebody would make such an enormously significant claim without any information or facts to substantiate it. But here's what happened. Back in August, on August 22nd of 2017, the founder of Fusion GPS testified in a closed-door interview with the Senate Judiciary Committee. The founder's name is Glenn Simpson. Simpson was repped by an attorney, his attorney, named Josh Levy. Now, the purpose of this interview, which was voluntary on the part of Fusion GPS, was transparency. That's what they said. They wanted to clear their name. The interview occurred behind closed doors. We didn't know the details of what was said in August when it happened. Fast forward to yesterday. Senator Dianne Feinstein, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, released on her website the transcript of the closed-door interview with Glenn Simpson and his lawyers. The purpose, she said, was transparency. Fusion GPS wanted to release the information. Yet, the information they released didn't clear up any questions. In fact, just the opposite. The transcripts show Simpson's lawyer claiming that somebody has been killed as a result of the publication of the dossier, but did not elaborate on who was killed, when they were killed, why they were killed, where they were killed, or by whom they were killed. In addition, Senator Feinstein redacted on the released transcript the names of Fusion's business partners who paid Fusion GPS and the names of the Russian sources Christopher Steele used to compile the information that he put into the dossier. Simpson also contradicted himself several times. At one point in the past, he said he didn't verify the veracity of the dossier and claimed that even Steele only believed 80% of the information. Yet, in the Senate transcript, Simpson's lawyers defended the contents of the dossier as being true. So why release parts of the transcript without the whole thing, leaving even more questions unanswered and the credibility of the whole thing in even greater doubt? Joining me now to break this down from the Center for Security Policy, Chris Hull. Chris, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Liz. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, it's good to see you. All right, what do you make of this? I mean, these are some pretty serious snippets of information that we see in this transcript, yet sometimes the most important part, the answers to the questions, were blacked out by Senator Feinstein.
It's curious, isn't it? Seems like if you were aiming at transparency, you wouldn't be blacking things out. Especially, it seems a little bit strange that since her aim is transparency, that she blacked out not only the details that you named, Liz, she also blacked out the names of the FBI agents which were working on the Clinton email scandal. Now, that seems like a remarkable coincidence, don't you think?
It does. It seems absolutely mind-boggling to me. I was trying to get into Fusion GPS's head a little bit to see why they would have encouraged Senator Feinstein to release this, and I truthfully don't know. I mean, to make a bombshell allegation, to say that somebody's been killed as a result of the publication of this document, and then to refuse to elaborate on it, what purpose does that serve?
Well, of course, what they're trying to say is that that we must absolutely defend the integrity of this dossier, that, my goodness, these sources are at risk of literally their lives. Now, I'd have no idea whether that is true or not. That's not my area of expertise. But I'll tell you this, it seems strange that at the end of the 10-hour interview, or during the 10-hour interview, I should say, the attorney for Simpson requested that due to the sensitive nature of the information contained within it, that it be sealed. And yet, and I quote, Dianne Feinstein in her statement said, after speaking with majority and minority committee staff for 10 hours, Glenn Simpson requested the transcript of his interview be released publicly. That's a lie. That is a lie. Unless you want to insert, Glenn Simpson waited for 9 months and she apparently left that part out in this draft.
Right. It's absolutely mind-boggling. And I don't even understand why, at this point, they would want to defend the integrity when Glenn Simpson is sitting in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and through his lawyers, he's contradicting things he said in the past. In the past, he testified that he did not even independently verify the claims, all of the allegations against President Trump that are included in this dossier, that he actually went to the media and offered them the information in this dossier without having gone to Russia, without having looked into what sources Christopher Steele used to get this information. He said that before, yet his lawyer said that this is the truth, that this is honest work. No harm should come to anybody related to this honest work. Well, which is true? You can't have it both ways.
Well, what they should have done really is at the end of the dossier, they should have included a note that said, you know, some of this is impressionistic and just my sort of sense of what happened, like Wolf did at the end of his book about Trump, because they seem to be rather similar in the fact that they contain a whole bunch of fake news. Look, if anybody is responsible for the death of one of the sources of, that worked with Steele, it's BuzzFeed, who originally publicized the results of this dossier. And let me be clear about something else. If people are in fact in danger, it would seem to me to be the height of irresponsibility for Simpson and Feinstein to be releasing this document now.
Right. And by the way, Glenn Simpson did say something very similar to Michael Wolff. He said, quote, "You don't really decide who's telling the truth, just whether the person is credible." So it is, if you feel it, it might be true type of situation. And I would echo what you said 100%. If people's lives are at risk, your feelings don't matter. What matters is protecting that person's identity. So here's a part, too, that I think the mainstream media is ignoring, a part that I think is very important here. If someone was, in fact, a source was, in fact, killed as a result of the publication of this dossier, doesn't that make it even more important for us to have an answer to the question about who were the ones paying for this and whether the FBI actually paid for this? Because theoretically, if there is substantial evidence that someone was killed as a result of this, doesn't that mean that Hillary Clinton, the DNC, and possibly the FBI paid for information that led to the death of a source?
Absolutely. It does suggest that. In fact, one of the small pieces of information which is going strangely unreported, Liz, in what was just released, is that the FBI did pay Steele. We now know, it is now, at least according to what Simpson says, right? According to Glenn Simpson's testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, before this investigative staff, I should say, he says that the FBI paid Steele's expenses, at least to go to Rome, which sounds nice to me, in order to further his research into Donald Trump. That means we have the Federal Bureau of Investigation paying an opposition researcher expenses as he is doing work for the Democratic National Committee. That sounds to me something like Hoover would have applauded back in the day.
And what's that word that Democrats use for that? There's a specific word that Democrats have been using. That's right. Collusion.
Collusion.
That sounds to me like exactly like collusion. Last question here, Chris. So what's the point, I guess? And like I said, I've been trying to get inside the head of Dianne Feinstein, get inside the head of Glenn Simpson here. When you make a release like this, but you also redact things, it's a political maneuver. They're doing it for a reason. They're doing it most likely to prompt an action, like when Comey leaked that information about his meeting with President Trump. He did that to prompt the appointment of Robert Mueller. What is the point of this political maneuver? What are they hoping to achieve by releasing this information?
I believe that they are trying to refocus the attention on the scurrilous details and the strange accusations that surround that are included in the dossier and surround its acquisition, because I believe that they're desperate. I believe that Simpson realizes that he is in serious legal jeopardy. I believe that Steele was just referred for criminal investigation by Senators Grassley and Graham because it appears that he has lied to the committee. It appears that the bottom is coming out of the story, and increasingly it is clear that the collusion that took place, as you implied, Liz, is not collusion between Trump and Russia. There is zero evidence after all of this investigation by all of these individuals, some paid by the DNC, some paid by you, the taxpayer. There is zero evidence that there was collusion between Trump and Russia, and there is enormous, ridiculous, painfully obvious, clear evidence that the FBI, the intelligence agencies, and the DNC were all working with the same individuals to try to stop Trump from being president and then try to remove him from office once he became president. That's what they want to refocus on. That is their project. That is the reason for this release.
Right. I agree with you. Perhaps also a little bit of a revenge against Senators Graham and Grassley for referring Steele without first consulting Senator Feinstein here. To me, it just seems irresponsible to the utmost to make a release with claims, unsubstantiated claims like this, without elaborating on it. It's absolutely politically insane. Chris, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it. All right, don't go anywhere. We have J.D. Gordon here next. J.D. worked side by side with President Trump on the campaign trail. If there's anybody who can tell us about the state of Trump's mental health, it would be J.D., who worked with him, not some author who never even interviewed the people he wrote about. So we're going to ask J.D. next. Stick with us.